Let's talk about Islamic law in 3 minutes. There are two main sources of Islamic law. The first being the Quran, which is the completion of the revelation sent with previous prophets, like the Psalms of Prophet David, the Torah with Prophet Moses, the Gospel with Prophet Jesus. And the Quran was revealed from God through the angel Gabriel to Prophet Muhammad. The second is the Sunnah, or the Prophet Muhammad's lived expression of what the Quran legislated. Objectives of Islamic law, which is the protection of life, faith, property, family, and intellect. The way that Islamic law is applied takes into account the realities of different places and spaces. Let me give you an example of what that actually looks like. The Quran talks about providing for the needy, supporting the vulnerable. The Prophet Muhammad said that none of you are a true believer if you sleep while your neighbor is hungry. Once Omar, the second ruler of the Muslim community, was walking and he overheard an elderly Jewish man begging for money to be able to pay taxes. Omar recalled the messages of the Quran with supporting the vulnerable and was so horrified that under his rule, regardless of religion, there could be someone who needed to beg. So he lifted the taxes from this individual and ensured that they had a salary coming from the national treasury. And this week, the news was filled with conversations on women in Islamic law in education, work, and dress. Let's handle all of those issues in the last 2 minutes of this TikTok. When Angel Gabriel brought the first words of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, they were, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. The Quran begins by talking about education. A huge figure in Islamic history, Aisha, a woman, was one of the foremost interpreters of Islamic law. Literally hundreds of thousands of women who continued to be scholars of law. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad, there were women who were medics, warriors, poets, businesswomen. They actively shaped the political, economic, spiritual, familial infrastructure of the community, not only with the Prophet's direct approval, but with his blessing. As for hijab, or the covering, Virgin Mary is often depicted, as many of you might have seen, dressed very similarly to me. In the Quran, she is called the best woman. The miracle of her son Jesus, from raising the dead to healing the blind and the leper, to speaking in the cradle, all happened, as the Quran says, by the power of God. Who could have raised a man like that? Her dynamism, strength, power, and yet complete humble submission to God. So when I wear hijab, it's a reminder to me to be a reflection of who she was. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, the best of you, when he was speaking to men, is the best to women. If there's a group that's taking women's rights away, that's not an extreme interpretation of Islamic law. It's simply not Islamic law.